A la Carte. This is a game that originally came out in the 1980s, and then if Board Game Geek is to be believed, and if you cannot believe Board Game Geek, really, I mean, what else is left? So apparently the game remained dormant for a couple of years, and then it has been reprinted several times in different editions lately. And I have here a new edition, which is the one that I played with my family. I played with my daughters that are currently 8 and 10, to give you, a sense of the constituency that I'm playing with, because in times of pandemic, I don't have game night with my adult friends. And so there's a game that does work in that setting, does work if you're playing it with kids. Each player will try to cook a number of dishes, and from the point of view of the production, really, the game almost looks like a toy set, because each player has a stove such as this one, a pan. There are these containers here containing different types of spices, and each container you will place 15 of these stones of a color plus 5 white ones representing salt. So what happens? Each player will have one of these tiles here in their pan representing the recipe that they're trying to cook. For example, I'm trying to cook the rabbit a la king, and if I'm successful, then I turn it this way, and then I'll score the number of points at the end of the game. And yes, these recipes are based on puns that I'm sure the designer found really hilarious. So, the tile tells me the ingredients that I need to have in there: 1 lemon, 1 pepper, and 1 red pepper, I assume. At least one of these. So I will need at least 1 yellow stone, 1 black, and a red one. However, if there are 3 or more of any color, so 3 yellow or 3 pepper or 3 red, is bad because I overspiced it, and then I need to discard this. I don't get to complete that. If there's salt in there, that's okay. It's kind of like a useless thing. I guess it's a bit of an anti-salt game. However, if there are ever 3 salt in your dish, that also counts as overspiced, and that also ruins it. So I want to put 1 or 2 of each, but not 3. Below here, you have the temperature at which the dish must be cooked, so between 2 and 4. And you will increase the temperature during the game by increasing the temperature on your stove, and so you want it to be within that range. Lower than that, it does nothing. Higher than that, the dish is ruined, is burned, and that also eliminates it. So basically, if I have the right spices in my pan and I have the right temperature in the stove, I complete the dish, and that's when I put it in my scoring pile. I get a new one, and so on and so forth. So, also, there are these tiles here representing cups of coffees, because drinking coffee when you cook gives you energy. That's not what I drink when I cook, but that's okay. We love diversity of opinion. And each will have a different advantage, such as this one. Boom, just a sheer victory point. Other ones will give you different abilities, and some can be a little bit cutthroat, can be a little confrontational. Basically, since I'm playing with children, or kids actually, the 10-year-old is not really a child anymore. When I'm playing with young gamers, when there are certain game effects from the cup that I get, I don't use them, I don't have to. Now, the general idea: when it is your turn, you'll have 3 actions, and you use these 3 tools here to mark the actions. When you take one, you give it to the next player, so that at the end, the next player that goes will have those available, and you continue like this. Your 3 actions, for each action, you can do 1 or 2 things, and you can do them in any order and repeat those actions, which is, for an action, you can try to spice your dish, or you can increase the temperature. To increase the temperature, you roll the special die here, and you increase it by a number of ticks equal to the result that you rolled. Say I was at 1, I rolled 3, goes to 4. That's pretty easy. Or it may happen that I get a cup of coffee. It may happen that I get to choose the temperature to increase between 1 and 3. It may also be that everybody, including my opponents, gets an extra temperature. The idea is, so don't let the thing on the stove pretty high at the end of your turn, because you do not know, it may be burned by the time the game goes around. comes back to you. So that's what happens when I spend an action to roll the die to increase the temperature of my stove. As for spicing, this is really when it gets a lot more interesting. Again, you spend an action, then you look at the spice that you need, you take the corresponding component, you can shake it a little bit if you want, and when the time comes, for now I'm gonna block it like this, you're gonna simply do a single pour, just like that. Just like that. Now, sometimes nothing comes out, and we house rule, the rule book doesn't say that if nothing comes out, you can redo it until something happens, but I don't think the rule book says that. In general, something should come out every time, but again, you have a single pour. Say, I'm gonna try 1, 2, 3, go. There you go, nothing happened. There you go. That was good, because I got one of exactly what I wanted. And then I'm gonna take another action and go. There you go. Lucky again. I'm gonna cook the perfect dish here. Suppose in a later turn I get to do that. I cooked the perfect dish, which means I cooked the perfect dish because I have the temperature and have exactly the spices indicated there, no more than necessary, and no salt. When that is the case, I get to collect one of these tokens here. If somebody cooks 3 perfect dishes, the game ends immediately and they win, just like that. Otherwise, you continue until a player is unable to refill their pan from the pool of recipes that is available. And when you complete a recipe and you take another one, it has to be a different color if you can. So whichever it is that ends the game, if it ended because somebody got 3 perfect dishes, that's it. You don't even need to count points. Otherwise, if it ends in other ways, you add all the total of the dishes that you completed and you score that amount of points. One last wrinkle, each player receives one of these recipes for the crepe Suzette at the beginning of the game. You don't need ingredients, you just need to warm it up, and then you have 2 attempts in your turn to flip it. And I did flip it, but I flipped it on the table, so that's embarrassing. And no one will want to do that. Ta-da! If you're able to do that, each turn you have 2 attempts. First you heat the stove, and then you have 2 attempts to flip it. If you do like I just did, you score 5 points, but you get no perfect dish token, which means, by the way, that this is perfectly useless if somebody ends the game by cooking the perfect dish. This is how you play a la carte. Yes, but is this a game? I don't know. It really feels more like a loosely gamified playset than anything else. I had fun interacting with this thing because I was playing with my kids, and I saw my kids, especially Louisa, the 8-year-old, enjoying it so much, having so much fun. And I try to like it again as a game, trying to say, okay, but what kind of interesting decisions are here? What kind of dilemmas am I solving? And there are some real basic things that you can do. Say, when I'm looking for a new recipe, I look at the bottles with the spices, and I see that the bottle has a lot of salt and not a lot of those spices, so I try to avoid recipes that may have that. And that almost feels to me like the only real decision that you can make, and it doesn't even work all that often because maybe all the recipes that are left, or almost all of them, have that thing, or by the time one of the bottles is almost depleted, then my daughter has completed 3 perfect dishes and the game is over anyways. So I can't really figure out ways in which you can plan things and be engaged with the game the way that we are engaged with modern game designs. And so ultimately it is just the fun of shaking those things and rolling that die. And rolling the die is not particularly unique because we do it so often, so we're left with that thing. And again, it really feels like a toy set where you are spicing things. Nothing wrong with that if you're looking for a toy set, for a kitchen toy set. And that's pretty much all that there is, because there really isn't anything else really. You can use some of those effects, some of those coffee effects again, but you may never get one that gives you a decision that makes sense to implement, or it may be obvious when to use it, or it may be irrelevant. It's a victory point. Yeah, I got that. Ultimately you're gonna spice things up, and you're gonna turn on your stove, and that's all you do. And really, the only thing that, since again, rolling a die and turning that thing is not all that interesting. The production looks pretty. It's pretty good. It's a good toy set, with the exception possibly of the two things, is a technical term. The two thingies that you use to connect the dial on the stove, they're not two plastic clips that clip together like you have in so many dials in games. And actually, even the rulebook says that's what it should be. Actually, it's two metal things that look like two screws, and actually they don't clip. You have to screw one inside the other, and as you then turn the knob, they get loose. So on top of that, you kind of have to constantly fix that so it doesn't fall apart. But other than that, as a toy set, it's pretty good. As a game, not really much there. But my daughter Luisa has been asking me basically almost every day for the last week or so to play it, and she enjoys it very much. And I was very happy the first couple of times. Now I'm starting like, hey, do you want to play something else? Because, I'm always happy to see her eyes sparkling with joy as she sees on things, and she gets one perfect dish after the other. I don't know how the heck she does it. But after a while, I wouldn't mind if I could see that joy in her eyes while I'm also playing a game that I enjoy, as opposed to. So, not a game that I enjoy particularly, or that I would recommend to any gamers, to anybody who is looking for a game to play with their adult friends. Really, a game for families so that adults will play with children, but even better if you get the kids to play with one another as you are doing something else. And this is like my assessment of a la carte. In my experience, kids like it very much. For adults, there really isn't all that much to do, in my opinion.